So we're in a sort of brief lull in between what is probably going to be quite a lot of rain. So let's get on with it. Right, so today's planting is a little bit of a sort of mixed up version. So I'm putting in as the tree today something that would usually be more similar to a marker. So I'm putting in truncheons of Yucca gigantea, which is the one I call Yucca guatemalensis when I put a small one in as a marker plant next to one of my rough lemons. It is a huge succulent plant, and it does produce an edible fruit in its own right, but probably won't do that here because typically yuccas only fruit when they are pollinated by the yucca moth, which, as with the yuccas, is normally restricted to the Americas, and as far as I know it has never turned up as an invasive in Zambia. And so our yuccas will probably be going unpollinated. They produce huge white flowers, which will be valuable to a lot of pollinators, but the pollinators won't have quite the right shape probably to actually trigger fruit development, which is a shame because it's a fruit I've never tried and I'm always curious. But I am going to try and get fruit out of these anyway, because up these yucca poles I will be planting some dragonfruit. Dragonfruit is a vining cactus which typically, as far as I know, grows in dry forest. There are several different species. This should be Hylocereus undatus, I think, or undulatus. It'll be up on the screen. It produces a pink fruit with a white flesh. The flesh tends to be rather bland. It gets a little bit stronger tasting during sunnier periods because they can fruit almost year round under the right conditions, but they tend to require, like a lot of forest plants, they tend to require quite a lot of humidity to actually set fruit. So we have this bit where if we have a dry spell in the middle of the rains, we tend to get quite good fruit. If we have a really good rainy season without sort of a dry week or so, we get fruit, but it tends to be bland and rather flavourless, just sort of sweet water with roughly the texture of kiwi fruit. With a little more sun, they get a little bit more sour, which I tend to prefer in fruits. So in with those, I am going to be putting something else that produces a fruit. So this time I'm putting in another Opuntia. Now, usually I've been putting in the Opuntia ficus indica, although I have put an Opuntia maxima, I think an Opuntia maxima, in. Both of those tend to have fairly mild flavoured fruits, in my opinion, quite sweet. This one, which might actually be two species, because although I thought both clumps had come from the same mother plant, they have quite different growth forms, so I'm suspecting I might have just got my history of where I planted them from mixed up. And so these ones do both produce a small purple sour fruit, which I quite like chopped up into savoury dishes, so in salads, into sort of pasta dishes, that, cold pasta dishes. I think it can be a really good addition to that. It's much tartar. It's a little bit like a sour tomato in its flavour, with a slight prickly pear edge and that prickly pear texture thrown in, which can be a really nice addition to a meal. I'm also putting in some Euphorbia tithymaloides. This is the Jacob's Ladder or Devil's Backbone, which I'm putting in 3 around the base of each yucca, so hopefully they'll form a little bit of a barrier to mole rats that would come along and chew through that base. Hopefully these poles going in are large enough that even if the mole rats do have a little bit of a nibble, it won't go far enough through to actually damage the plant too much. And hopefully they'll establish quite quickly because they've got that extra mass to draw water from. They should hopefully be able to root out quite quickly, and then they won't be so vulnerable to a little bit of mole rat damage. But just in case, let's put something toxic around the base. And then, because I usually put aloes in, and aloes are African and Asian, and I felt like, I put 4 American plants in so far, I might as well put 5. I thought I'd put something that I thought was an aloe for a very long time, and it is quite similar looking to an aloe striata until it flowers. So this is the foxtail agave, which is the agave attenuata, I think. It has a very tall, drooping flower. I have put one in previously, I think with the jackalberry probably, and they take quite well, and they are multi-headed unlike a lot of agaves, and also, crucially, they are not prickly. So although it will form a fire break because those water-filled leaves don't burn easily, and that should stop any fires that do come through here getting to the plants that I'm intending to keep, they are not going to be a physical barrier to a lot of things, but fortunately that is what the Opuntia is for, because this is quite a long-thorned variety which should stop any browsers who want to nibble on my dragonfruit, unlikely, getting to it. The dragonfruit itself is also prickly, and the yucca is also prickly, so I think we're covered in terms of toxicity and prickliness. So I am tying the dragonfruit on, you will notice, with a piece of vine. So that is another American plant, actually, I think. So this is Dolichondra unguiscati, which is the cat's claw vine. It's a very pretty yellow flowered vine. I'll put a picture of the flowers up and thing. What's quite interesting about it, because it is an invasive and it is quite aggressive and will climb all over everything, so you'll notice I'm not putting any roots in because I don't want it rooting here. What's quite interesting about it is it holds on with these little 3-clawed rakes which basically cling onto everything, and it makes it really good for tying plants on, and because it is itself plant, it tends to rot reasonably slowly, which means that by the time it rots, hopefully it will go away before the plant thickens up enough that being tied on is going to be a problem for it. Whereas with a twine you either have to cut it or you have to get a biodegradable one, which seems expensive when you could just cut a piece of cat's claw, wrap it around a few times, and it will cling on and slowly rot away as the plant establishes itself. Right, so that should be everything for today. The weather forecast does seem to have lied to me, because having rushed out to get it when the rain lightened off, it seemed like that might have been the beginning of a longer period of blue skies, because a patch of blue sky that didn't look like it was coming towards us has, and now we have blue sky overhead and just clouds around the horizon. But anyway, it's in. Thank you for watching. Tune in tomorrow to see what we do then.